Okay, so what we're going to do here is we have this. Let me get this out of the way. Can everybody see that all right? Where they're at? Looks good? Okay. All right, so go ahead and put your name on this and your period. This is 7th period?
Yeah.
You guys, I always put now on here because when I first started doing video tutorials for my kids, if I didn't put the period that they were in, they would get offended. They'd be like, "What about our period?" So I just put now. Okay. So what this worksheet is I want you to notice that right here, this is two-sided and it's a lot of the same stuff. Okay? We're going to start with pencil today, and then next class we're going to actually shade one of the drawings that you guys did last semester with pencil. Do not lose this worksheet. You're going to keep this in your binder because then we're going to do a little mini unit on a felt tip pen. We're going to do a mini unit on ballpoint pen, and we're going to do a mini unit on colored pencils. Okay? So we drew 4 things last semester. We're going to shade those things this semester with practice. Alright? Okay. So right here on the shading techniques, what we're going to do before we begin is, let me grab a scrap piece of paper. I want to teach you guys how to hold your pencils. I know that seems like, hey, I'm in high school, but this will help you. Okay, so some of you guys, I have a short pencil here and I have a long pencil here. Okay. And this is a scrap piece of paper. You guys can use like the edge of your paper if you want. But what I want you to notice, the proper way. Now, some of y'all aren't going to break your habits, but I encourage you to do it, okay? If you have a long pencil, what I like to do is I like to put the end right in the middle of my palm and then grip it like so, okay? This allows me to use the side of the pencil. We're not writing. When you've been taught how to hold a pencil, you've been taught to hold your pencil like so, and that's how you're going to do lines, okay? We're not trying to shade with lines. That's how we're going to get all those like sketch marks, okay? What we want to do is we want to use the side of the pencil. Everybody look at the side of your pencil. This way you want it nice and sharp to shade, okay? Put it right in the middle of your hand, and then I like to put one hand on top. That allows me to apply more or less pressure, okay? So really quickly, you can just on this edge of yours, just try to make a mark with the side of your pencil, and notice how you can't see lines when you do that. Everybody see that there? This is on autofocus. Okay. So when you're using the side of your pencil, you can go lighter and harder and darker. You can also put more layers on and create value. Okay? You can go really, really dark and add more layers. Now, one thing that you don't want to do, has anybody ever shaded something really dark before, like crazy dark? And what you probably did is you probably put your hand like this, and you probably like went back and forth like this, and really, really, what this does is it stretches the paper, and when you're done, your paper will actually be wavy. You don't want to do that. To get dark values, you want to do like a medium hard layer, and then do another medium hard layer on top, and you want to go at least in 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 increments. Okay? I can get there eventually by doing layers, but if I go all in at once, it tends to stretch and warp the paper, okay? It also makes it so that it's shiny, and I'm not a fan of that, okay? All right, so everybody just do like a zigzag line using the side of your pencil, and notice how, compared to how you normally hold your pencil, look how different that looks. You can put down so much more graphite just by holding your pencil correctly, okay? Now, if you have a smaller pencil, it's actually a lot easier because I actually like everybody look up here really quick. I like my finger, my top finger, to be as close to the tip as possible. It allows me to put more pressure down if I want to, okay? So I actually like it when my pencil's a little bit shorter. If you don't, what you can do, everybody look right here. If you want to get more pressure and push really hard right here, sometimes I'll put my pencil through the middle of my wrist like this, and it's just, instead of being right in the middle here, I can move it forward. and I put my finger on top, and that allows me to apply more or less pressure. Okay? Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, let's all look over here. I want everyone just to watch for a second. Put your pencils down for me. What we're going to do on the top, using the side of your pencil, you're going to shade 9 distinct consistent values. No gradient in each box. Each box should have clear contrast. Now, this up here, you guys, I don't have a demo, so just ignore that top box right there. Okay? We're going to have a demo right here, but I have to do it before I do it. So number 1 is going to be the darkest you can possibly go. Okay? So we're going to take this box and we're going to start building it up. And sometimes I lift my pencil just to get the edge. And you can even rotate your pencil to really keep it nice and clean and neat. In fact, when you're doing darker values, you want to go multiple directions. Because have you guys noticed that when you shade on paper, there's a tooth to the paper? And the only way to really fill in that tooth or the grain of the paper is to go different directions. So everybody, really quickly, let's go ahead for value number 1. Let's try to get the darkest value possible. If you go out of the lines, don't worry, we can erase it. Thankfully, we're on pencil right now. Now I've got 1 layer. I'm going to go back and I'm going to, you guys, to get 9 values out of this, you're really, really going to have to go pretty dark. You want to go as dark as humanly possible. But remember, we want to build it up in like 4 or 5 layers. We do not want to do this like super like dark all at once, or else it'll warp the paper, and that's no bueno, especially because we're going to be using the back of this paper too. So I'm on my 3rd layer right now, and it's really, I can't see much of the white tooth of the paper anymore. I'm using the side of my pencil, and I'm able to get really, really dark values. Try going different directions. Sometimes, have you noticed when you press really hard, you get like a glossy surface? So that's why it's nice to go different directions too. You can kind of work away from that glossiness, and it shows your streaky movements. Use the side of that pencil. Now, before we go on to box number 2, we're going to clean up the edges of box number 1 and make sure it's neat and clean. Now, y'all might be like, oh, this is tedious and hard, but what happens when you're doing a portrait of a person's face and you got to do that nose and it has really small areas? Okay, you got to get those nostrils, got to get the outside and inside of the nostril. Think about all the little texture on a lip, all the little liney bits, you know what I'm saying? Okay, now I've got the darkest. How many of y'all did the darkest? Now this is what I like to do for the first time you ever do this. What we're going to do is we're going to leave 9 the white of the paper. Everybody look up here for a second. 9 is going to be the absolute lightest value, which is the paper. So we're going to go to 8. And what I'm going to do, everybody look right here. I need everybody's eyes up here. See how loosely I'm holding the pencil? Okay? The looser you hold the pencil, the lighter the value will be. Okay? So you still want to have control. What we're going to try to do right now is we're going to try to get the lightest, humanly lightest value we can possibly get with this pencil for number 8. Okay? I would try to do it all in 1 layer. I would not do many layers, but make sure you fill it all in. Make sure it's smooth in there. Do not use your finger. If you accidentally, look right here, kids, if you accidentally go too dark, see how I accidentally there just went a little bit too dark? You can use your eraser just to tap it, and that will lightly and gently bring up any excess area if you accidentally went too large. I don't like erase a dark area. I tap it, because if you erase it, you're going to end up with a hole, and you don't want a hole. Now, can you guys even see that? That is so light. Now you know your extremes. Does that make sense?
Mine's a little less light, but that's because I did as light as I can.
Okay, that's good. If you're lighter than me, that's good. All right?
Less light.
Okay, that's fine. A little bit darker. So you want to go as light as humanly possible because we still have to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other values. Okay? So if you go too dark too quickly, now here's the deal, kids. I need to be able to see a value change between every single one of these lines. I do not want it to gradually change. Everybody look right here, please. See how this one gradually changes? That is not what we're doing. We are doing boxes. I need to be able to see contrast between each one. So now I'm going to go on to number 7. I'm going to go just slightly harder than I did for 8. I want to be able to see a value change here. Don't forget, you can kind of tap it if you get too dark. Okay, I have 1, 7, and 8, and now I'm going to go on to 6. I'm going to try to make 6 just slightly darker, just very slightly darker than 7. I'm holding my pencil farther toward the end. Holding your pencil, everybody look up here. When I'm holding it at the very end here, it allows me to make the lightest line possible, the lightest marks possible. So I'm really loosey-goosey on how I'm holding my pencil. Now I just finished 6, but 6 doesn't look like it's darker than 7. So that means I'm going to have to press a little bit harder or do another layer. Remember, we want these boxes to be smooth. I don't want to be able to see lines or gaps in your value. It should be consistent. Now ask yourself when you're done with 6, can you tell a difference between 7, 8, and 6? Can you see a clear, distinct value change between them? Now I'm feeling pretty good about mine. Can you guys see how you can barely see 8? 7 you can see, and 8 looks a little bit, or 6 looks a little bit darker. I'm going to go on to 5 here, and I got to make sure that it's darker than 6. I'm already putting a little bit of pressure on this. Maybe a little bit too much. Now, one thing I should have said first, y'all, that's my bad. I just thought about your guys' surfaces on your table. Is anybody getting little impressions from our chipped tables? Okay, if you want to, you can get a drawing board every time you come in here, and that drawing board, it's behind Gus. Gus, raise your hand. So right behind Gus, there are brown drawing boards, and that will help you not get the impressions for the desks. Because we really are trying to make this smooth. For the time being, you can move your paper around so that you're not right on a chip.
There are chips everywhere.
I know, right? Yeah, there really are. The wood tables are nice for ceramics, but it makes shading a little bit difficult.
It's darker than 6.
That's why we have those drawing boards. Now, something I like to do, y'all, is when I get a little, I like, sometimes I'll go a little bit too dark and then I'll tap it away so that it gets lighter. Because I have a heavy hand. Does anybody here have a heavy hand? The lighters are harder for me. But for some kids, the darkers are the hardest.
That's
Okay?
me.
Yeah. So you have to really do layer after layer. Okay, you guys, I'm on to 4 and I'm pressing right from the get-go a little bit harder than I did on 5. Now, something else that you can do, has anybody noticed that when you shade a lot on one side of your pencil, it gets kind of flat, the lead? The graphite? I like to kind of look up here. I like to kind of rotate my pencil after a little while so that it's like I'm sharpening myself.
What if he did?
Yeah, that's okay. Just kind of rotate it just a wee little bit in your hand. And it'll self-sharpen as you go. How many of you guys are using the side of your pencil intentionally for the first time today? This is a good technique. You can get a lot more graphite down a lot more quickly, and it's less
Can I sharpen
liney. It's a lot more smooth.
Can I sharpen my pencil? 'Cause it's
Yeah,
not there.
absolutely. If you need to sharpen your pencil, just hop up and do it. There's also the little ones, but those aren't the best sharpeners, let's be honest.
Let's face it, they suck.
What was that? Thank you. Now, this is important to get a different value. None of your boxes should be the same value. And none of your boxes should be gradating. They should all be the same value, but each box should be different. It should not look like your box is going from dark to light. It should all be looking the same value. We're trying to really color right now, if that makes sense.
So wait, I'm not supposed to do this?
No, you're doing all right, I think. I can't really tell from all the way over here, but it looks good. Well, look right here, Dream. We don't want each box to look like this. We want it to be a flat value. That's what
But
I'm
I
trying
did
to
mess
say.
up on the first dark because I got it as dark as I could, and now
Okay.
I can only get it as dark as I can.
Yeah, you can only go as dark as you can. All right, how many of you guys have all but 2? They're looking pretty good. They look different. You can tell the different values. Okay, let's go one darker in 3. Now, we only have 2 more values, so you could probably hit this one pretty hard. You just want to make sure you have room between 1 and 3 to go one more value. If you go too dark too quickly, there's nowhere to go, and you're going to end up with 2 blacks instead of just 1 black. 2's got to be slightly lighter than 1. Can I get everybody's attention up here for 1 second? I want to show everybody something. Stop what you're doing. Eyes up front. Cross your hands, Gus. Alright, everybody look right here. When I'm here and I'm drawing, I'm going, see how my hand is down here on the pencil? I'm just trying to apply value, but when I'm getting tight to the line, see how I move it forward? That allows me to get a more crisp edge, like a line. So my hand is closer to the tip on the edge, and then I go back out again. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm constantly moving my hand up and down, applying pressure or loosening, depending on what values I'm trying to get. Your hand placement is very, very important.
I went too dark too quickly.
Yeah, that's usually the problem that most kids have. So the good news is we have erasers, and for pencil, it really is easy to erase your darker values to make those lighter. Just kind of tap on it, you know?
Does that look better? I mean, that's about them.
That's good. That's good. You're in a good place. I think your number 3 might be a little bit too light in areas.
You sure?
Let me see it. 1, 2, 4. 4 looks lighter than 5. See that? Just put a little bit more in the middle. It looks like it's light there. Okay?
That look better?
That does look better. Alright, now I am on to number 2, y'all. I'm going to be pushing a lot harder and building it up. I'm not as concerned on the last one. It's looking pretty good. I'm looking like I have room for this last value. If you're not looking like you have enough room, you might need to be tapping your pencil, your eraser. So everybody look up here for 1 second. See how my number 2 is lighter than number 3? So what does that tell me I gotta do to number 2? I gotta do another layer. I gotta keep going. Just want to make sure that I don't get too close to number 1. I would try. A huge part of growing your skills and your muscle memory is trying to shade inside of the lines. Of course you're going to make little mistakes here and there. I just made a mistake on box 2, which I could easily erase. But it's a part, how you practice is how you're going to perform. Okay? If you're practicing messy, you're going to perform messy. And we're trying to stay nice and neat and clean. Now at the end here, I'm just going to use my sharp tip pencil eraser, and I'm just going to clean up all of the borders to make sure this is nice and clean. And I'm not going to touch it with my oily hands as much as I can. I'm going to avoid touching any of this shading with my oily hands. Now, I would spot check yours. Everybody look up here at mine. See how my number 4 has this dark area in the middle? I'm going to go back in there and tap that up. I don't like that. I'm just quality checking all my values, and I feel like my 3 needs a little bit more value on it. So I'm going to go back in here and fill that in a little bit darker. Just make sure that each box is clearly a different value. Alright, that feels good to me. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next box. If you're not quite there yet, that's okay. We're going to go on to this gradation. Everybody see right here, this long skinny one? I want everyone to look right here. Everybody, fold your hands, put your pencils down. What I'm going to do is I like to move my pencil in the direction that's going to work for me. And I like to start on the dark end because if I go too hard, it's not the end of the world, right? It's be a lot harder to start light and go dark, I think. So I start nice and dark, and if I go outside the lines, it's not the end of the world. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to very, very carefully, I'm looking at this one right next to it, and I'm trying to match the value, and I'm releasing pressure as I go. And then I'm moving my pencil back so I can get these lighter values. Okay, now that's my first layer. Is it as dark as the printed one? No, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to do some more value work. I'm using the side of my pencil and I'm gently releasing as I go. Okay, go ahead and give this a whirl. We're trying to make a smooth gradation. You can go different directions as well if you're smart about it, but I do not want to be able to see direction. It should look smooth. no white gaps in places. I'm just gonna build up those darks. And then right about the middle, I'm really easing off because that's where I want those lighter values. If I missed areas around the edges especially, I'm just patching those up by gently moving my pencil tip in there. But what we're trying to get is this smooth gradation from the darkest value possible to the white of the paper. Now this is a cool tool, y'all. I don't have one for everyone. Maybe I'll get some for us. Everybody look up here. This is called a drafting brush, and it's for drafters, and that way you can get rid of your eraser bits. It's pretty cool, huh? You can use a regular big pencil if you want, or a brush, but the big ones are nice. Alright, so I'm going to keep doing layers until my darks get as dark as the printer. Now, ink is going to always be more black than graphite, okay? So your drawing is going to be slightly lighter than the ink drawing, but we're trying to match it as best as possible. Your gradation should look like it's constantly moving and getting lighter and lighter as you go. The whole thing should look like different values. It should not look like you have a dark area, a giant patch of gray, and then one light area. It should look like a constant gradation. And when I go back on top, because I don't want to go too dark everywhere all at once, my last layers here where I'm really trying to tweak it are very light. They're not super dark. I'm really trying to get that gradation. The lighter, like I said, is a lot more difficult for me. So I'm being careful here at the end. I don't want to go too dark.
It's as dark as I'm gonna get it. I'm terrible at dark shading.
Say, I'm learning how to dark shade.
I'm learning how to dark shade.
There you go.
I'm doing it.
Now, if you look at me up here and look at the screen, I like to put my finger drain right on top, and that allows me to put more pressure.
I know. I've
So
been
move
trying
that closer.
I know I've been trying that.
Okay, that's a good thing to try.
What is this?
Now, sometimes these rubbings from the table being not clean is in there, so I'm just going to go back in there and jot this eraser tip down. Okay? And then I feel like I got it pretty good. No joke. How exciting. Now the next one's fun. I like the next one. The next one's super fun. We're going to go dark, medium, light, again and back, again. So try to, again, now we're trying to make this gradient tighter and closer changes in values. So less space, which is a little, ooh, I went too dark already. Ah. Now make sure that there is an area of white, okay? There is an area of white right in the middle. Do you see that? There's no gradation there. It's just straight up white paper. And then it goes back to dark again. Now you guys, I know that how many of y'all feel like this is just a little bit too tedious? This is tedious work. It's not exciting. It's not like we're drawing a bunny or something. But this is the skills that you're going to need to really, really make realistic art and to feel confident. Okay, you're training your mind and your brain to see these values. Yeah, you guys, I like to go dark to light, so I'm going to go dark and then blend that out to light. Remember to be using the side of your pencil to really make it more like smooth.
Mine's not that smooth, but that's because I don't have a good pencil.
I gave you good pencils.
The sharpening process didn't go well.
Okay, go use electric.
I did.
Use the small.
Yeah, the small one's better.
Is that good? That's what I could give.
Yeah, that's happening.
Oh my god.
I do recommend moving your paper around so that it's a little bit more conducive to where your arms are at. Make sure that your values are constantly changing. I just did one right now and it looked all the same value. If it all looks the same value, you're not gradating enough. So I'm going back in and putting more and more layers, and I'm going to go back in and erase a little bit so that I can get it a little bit better. A longer pencil is better for lighter values because it allows your leverage to be farther back. Now, if you finish this faster than me, make sure that you're cleaning up your edges, erasing those. Remember, we want neat and clean craftsmanship. We don't want fingerprints everywhere. We want this to be tidy. That is one thing that you always get graded on is how well you use your tools. If your paper's all bent and ragged looking, that's not going to be great for your grade. If your dark values are really shiny, that tells me you're not building them up properly. So make sure you're adhering to all the advice I'm giving you. All this advice I'm giving you is what you're going to get graded on. Okay? Okay, I've got my values. That's still not so great. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Be quiet, Siri. Alright, and that's where we're going to stop this one today. Okay, so we should have all that kind of done.
That's what it is, it's an object. Not a bar.
Okay, now, you guys, how did we do?
Terrible.
Let's try to assess ourselves and ask ourselves, is there anywhere that my shading looks too dark? Point to the areas that look too dark. Is there anywhere in your shading that looks too light? I'm like, no, that's not my problem. Is there anywhere that looks patchy, where it's either too like dark in little areas, or maybe you haven't filled in the tooth of the paper very consistently? Any scribbles? Does anybody see any scribbles? Okay. Alright, this is good. Alright, now, y'all, let's go ahead and put these in our folders where we do Illustrate Away. Now, be ready. Next class, we're actually going to apply these skills to a drawing, okay? Do you want to know what you'll be shading on? I can't remember. Let me look at my plan. I don't think the hand is. We're going to be doing our dinosaur. No, that's all right.
I was like, sorry, I don't have one.
Colored pencil. The cat tail. Oh, we weren't going to do that. We're not going to do one. Okay. All right. So I think you need to work on darker darks.
Yeah.
Darker darks for sure. This is good. Good job.
What?
Right in here in this area,
Was terrible.
I feel like most of this area is all one value, where it should be changing and a little bit more fluid. Yeah.
I kind of need to figure out how to clean it up.
Are you a lefty?
No, I'm right.
Okay. So just make sure that you're not dragging your hand across things. Okay. So keep your hand out of the way. So now what you're gonna want to do is all gonna come down to these edges. Okay. So you want to make sure that those edges are crisp. You're not getting the contrast. Does that make sense? So you can erase on one side, but then fill in on the other. Now look how much more crisp that looks. So same thing on this side. Fill in on the left. But all your darks are pretty dark. Does that make sense? So my 5 is much lighter than your 5. So what you're really going to want to work on is holding your pencil back here and really working on getting really light values. Does that make sense? Yeah. Alright. It's a good start though. Alright, put these in your folders. Do not lose these. These are for a grade, but it's going to take about a month for us to go through all this.
It's gonna take a month.
Well, we're going to shade, and then we're going to do a drawing shaded. And then we're going to do felt tip pens, and then we're going to do a drawing with felt tip pens. Does that make sense? So it's going to take us time to get through it all.
I got it. Although the letters all came off here. This is $30. Dude, this Demon Slayer hoodie was $30. And the letters on the bottom of ours come off.
Ooh, I'm impressed. Come on.
And it was $30.
There was only two, right?